Hi Chakits, I have been following you and watching your YouTube channel for years.
I have decided to finally relocate to Las Vegas and want to start a new chapter in my life. I know you're the perfect realtor to help guide me to find my next dream home. I am looking for a modern kitchen, large backyard with a pool and a golf course community.
My name is Chakits Krulsawat with Simply Vegas, a licensed real estate agent out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I help buyers like this all the time, so if you're looking for a licensed professional, give us a call at 702-319-1092 or visit lvhomeexperts.com. Buying a home starts here. Does your house look like and have you been considering remodeling your home for some time now? Well, if you love real estate like I do and appreciate the attention to detail in the craftsmanship required to build a remodel or a gorgeous home, then I got the perfect company for you. Guys, I highly recommend Design Zone Remodeling. They are a stellar company that will turn your outdated home into your own personal sanctuary. They specialize in bathroom remodels, kitchen remodels, and full house remodels. Design Zone Remodeling has a reputation for excellent workmanship, competitive fees, and being able to offer a wide range of services and deliver the outstanding results to their clients. I use Design Zone Remodeling on my personal properties. Give Design Zone Remodeling a call today at 725-223-0871 or visit their website at designzoneremodeling.com to request a free consultation today. Is your credit score holding you back from purchasing a home? GC Credit Coaches is a repair company that's made easy. Their goal is to challenge and remove all negative errors that hurt your credit score. On average, GC clients see about 10.2 negative items removed over 4 months. Start improving your credit score today with a simple 2-minute online enrollment for a free consultation and a complete credit audit. GC Credit Coaches offers competitive monthly pricing, no contracts, no hidden fees, and the service stops once you are satisfied. GC Credit Coaches removes inquiries, collections, charge-off bankruptcies, and repossessions. Don't forget to visit gccreditcoaches.com.
Attention contractors, remodelers, and homeowners. Is your renovation becoming a pain in the glass? Here at Glass Vegas, we take care of all of your glass needs, from a broken window to custom shower doors, mirrors, wine enclosures, storefronts, railings, and much more. We can even help you with new or replacement thermally broken windows. We're a full-service, woman-owned glass company that provides unparalleled workmanship, excellent communication, and great customer service. Glass Vegas, we do glass with class.
And welcome live to the LV Home Experts Podcast. This is where we talk about real estate and financing every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So today we have a very special guest. This gentleman is 23 years old and he makes over 6 figures. Reason why I wanted to bring him on the show today is because this cat has a bright future ahead of him. And I get calls all the time where people always ask me, how do you make money in real estate if you have no money? And this is why I love real estate, because real estate, there's so many different creative ways to make money, believe it or not. And a lot of you guys just don't know about this. And we're going to be talking about, flipping paper, doing some wholesaling. There's so many creative avenues where you can literally make tons of money. You don't have to be a real estate agent. So I want to bring on my special guest. What's up, brother? Ray. How's everything going?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for inviting me to be out here. I'm really honored.
Let's pull that mic a little bit closer to you. There you go.
Whoops, my bad.
there you go.
Practice rapping enough. I'm not sure how to.
There you go.
I need this mic.
I mean, you don't have to swallow it, but it's perfect. So, how's everything going with you, man, nowadays?
Everything's good, dude. I'm glad it's not super hot outside today.
Yeah.
Or not even all week. It hasn't been too hot, so I can't complain too much, man.
Isn't it this time of month where it's supposed to be like 100 degrees?
Yeah. No, for people who aren't from Vegas, they hear 100 degrees and think we misspoke, but no, it really does get like 100, 110 out here in Vegas all the time.
Yeah, wait till it hits like 111, 112. Once you start getting up to 110, right, it's pretty much all the same. But when you go from 110 to 111, 112, you can literally feel the difference by that 1 degree, which is crazy.
For sure. And crazy how even though we're talking about 1 degree, you can feel the difference.
Yeah.
In my business, we always say we want to get 1% better every single day. And 1%, it sounds like so small, but you can, like you talked about with the weather, you can really feel the difference in a 1% difference in a lot of different aspects of your life.
Wow, you actually make a good point, because there's times where I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over, and it gets repetitive, right, in real estate. And once it starts to get repetitive, we start to kind of like, plateau. But we're always challenging ourselves in our mind, just that one call, one more deal, make that extra call. And think about this. If you made that one extra call every single day, that's 30 calls, right? That's 365 calls more. And imagine how many more deals you could actually get by just doing that one more. And that's what I learned from the book, The Power of One More, Ed Milet. Have you ever read that book?
No, I will admit I do a very poor job of actually reading books.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know who Ed Milet is,
Yeah.
and I'm familiar with pretty much all these books that you have on here, but how many of those have I actually read? That's a different story. But I do need to get better at that.
I used to read, but then after that, I just started listening to a bunch of podcasts, and audiobooks is kind of like my thing. I'm a little bit burnt out on audiobooks right now, but I normally listen to audiobooks, but also buy the book too as well. But also, as I'm listening to the audiobook, what works for me is buying the book, reading along with it, and highlighting certain sections of the book. And I feel like that really works for me.
Good to know. I appreciate the tip, and I'll definitely have to start doing that and actually pick up a book or something.
So I want to talk about how we actually first met, and I think this is important. And the thing about real estate is, there's so many like real estate agents, so many people that are in the business. They get in, they get out, but there's really a small niche, a group of people. And eventually what happens is you end up crossing paths, right? And you'll eventually do some sort of business together, right? And you talked about this where, I don't forget what the term was. The more people you know, the more net worth you have, I guess.
Yeah.
What was that term that you said the other day? I forget what it was.
Yeah, so it's not even my quote.
Or it was like collaboration or something. What did you say about that?
I mean, I think I said a couple different things, and neither of these are my quotes. I've heard them from other people, but it's the more hands you make, the more dollars you make.
Yeah, okay.
That was one. Or collaboration over competition.
Yes, I like that. That's collaboration over competition. And that makes sense. And you know what's so funny is like when I first started this in like 2018, doing the videos from like 2018 to 2020, I was like I didn't want to show people like what I was doing. I was like kind of keeping it low key and doing my thing. But I got to a point where in my career, I realized it's better to help other people, show them what's going on, right? And bringing other people to the channel. So that way we can actually collaborate together. And it's actually a win-win situation, believe it or not. So I really do believe what you're saying, and it's coming to fruition. So, and I do want to say thank you for coming here to the podcast, because you can be anywhere, but you decided to come here. So I do appreciate that. Now, I want to start off from the beginning on how we actually met. And I think it was actually from a phone call, correct?
Yes. So I'll be honest. On the weekends, I like to sleep in. And it was like 11 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was still sleeping. This was maybe a year and a half ago. And I get a call from some random number. And sometimes my phone will show up like a caller ID if I don't have your number saved, or sometimes it'll show the phone number. And when my phone was ringing, it showed up as Chakits Krulsawat. And I was like, whoa, like I know who this guy is. Like we've never spoken or interacted or anything. But I mean, anyone who does real estate in Vegas, unless they're living under a rock, knows that, Chakits, he's big in town. He's big on social media. So that phone call kind of woke me up a little bit, literally. And I picked it up and I was like, yo, what's up? And basically you were like, hey, I see you're a wholesaler here in town. I'm looking to flip. Can we do some deals together? And we chatted for a little bit. And that was like our first initial conversation, but then nothing really came of that. I put you on my buyers list and whatnot, but your criteria for buying deals was like way similar to my criteria for the ones that I was actually buying. So we haven't done one together yet. I'm sure we will soon. Yeah. But then again, we ended up meeting at the gym. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And that's funny. Another thing, I just want to mention this really quickly. The gym, your body, right? Your physique is very important. And I want to be clear with this with all entrepreneurs out there. look, you can have a lot of money, but if you're unhealthy, dude, you're not going to make it. Because if you have a strong body, gives you a strong mind, you can literally keep going.
Yeah.
Health is very important. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But the funny thing about it is when I had this conversation with him the first time, I remember this. I was like, look, I want all your deals, all the good deals. I don't want the second batch because I know how this works. I don't want to be second string or third string. I want to be first string. But you work with, at that time with Ryan, and Ryan's a big wholesaler out here, right? Not wholesaler, but a flipper at that time. And you were giving him all the deals, which is I totally understand. But I did tell you, hey, if those deals doesn't work or if you're not working with them, let me know. And I could respect that position, right? Because I'm not trying to segue into it because that's not how I do business. Everything is all straight up. But I think that's where we kind of connected. And, I would say fast forward maybe about a year later, we met up at the gym and we just started bonding. And, you got a lot of great ideas. And that's why you are here today on the show. Now, you are 23 years old, correct?
Correct.
And this is fascinating. You're 23 years old. And for all the people out there, right, that are in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, thinking that you can't make money, right, that you don't have money to get started. Can you really make money up to six figures, right, with no money?
100%. 100%.
That's just crazy. So you can actually make money in real estate with zero money.
Zero money. Yep.
Okay. Now, we talked about real estate. There's all different niches to make money. Okay. What is your niche?
So I'm primarily focused on real estate investing, which I think is kind of where people get thrown aback a little bit because people think investing and they think you need money in order to invest that money, which couldn't be any further from the truth. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot of it on here, I'm sure. Now,
that's broad when you say investing because there's so many different avenues. You could do buy and hold, right? You can look for cash flow properties. You can flip properties. You can, flip paper as far as like wholesaling, right? You could do bird dogging, right? So I want to kind of cover all that and like really dive deep. Like, what is your niche in the real estate investing? Like, what is it? What do you mean by that? What do you do?
Got it. Okay. So I'm primarily a wholesaler, and that's what Chakits is referring to as flipping paper, selling contracts. We also do fix and flip. So I do buy houses, I get them fixed up, I sell them. And then I do have a couple rental properties as well. But the majority of our deals, I'd say like 70% of our deals are wholesale.
So if you're just getting into the business, this is probably where you're going to want to start. It's probably as far as like wholesaling or bird dogging, right? Okay, it's called bird dogging, right?
Yeah, and for those who don't know what a bird dog is, basically a bird dog is just someone who gives a lead to somebody else, and like that's all you do.
And you just take a little commission off of it.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, and the reason why I'm saying this is probably where you're going to want to start is because typically when you don't have any money, where the money is and where you create that money is finding the deals, because that's the hard part, is finding the deals. And once you find the deal, and if it's a real good deal, somebody's going to buy that from you, right? Then you start to stack up your money, and that's probably what you did. And, you probably flipped one or two properties, or you took some of that money, you allocated towards a rental property. And that's how you build your wealth through real estate, through rental income, right? So I want people to understand it. It's very hard just to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get into investing in cash flow properties with zero money, which is you still can, but it's even harder. But you have to have some sort of niche or some sort of vehicle to constantly get money to come in. And that's your niche is, wholesaling, correct? Finding deals and selling those deals or selling those contracts to a flipper, collecting your chips, stacking it up to a point where now if you want to flip a property or if you want to go out and find a cash flow property, is that kind of what you're doing here?
Yeah, exactly. And everything you said is exactly true. You can buy a rental with no money out of pocket. You can flip houses with literally no money at all. And to my surprise, a lot of people come to me and they're like, hey, Ray, I want to get started in real estate investing. And I ask them what they want to do. And what surprises me is a lot of people say they want to start off buying rentals. And I think that's the wrong way to go.
Yes.
Unless you're already making so much money at your W-2, I really wouldn't recommend it. Because most rental properties, I mean, you're going to cash flow positive maybe a couple $100 a month.
And that's not going to do nothing. If you get one vacancy, you're done.
Yeah.
Cash flow is all gone. Let's say if you're making $300, that's only $3,600 a year. AC goes out. Money's gone.
Right.
So what is really your rate of return, right? And that's the reason why I want to go back saying that I think wholesaling is the best way to go about this as far as finding deals. But I want to start off by, where did you actually start off at? Like, how old were you? Because you're 23 now. You've been doing this for a couple years. How old were you when you first started?
So I'm 23, like Chakits said. I first discovered real estate right when COVID hit, because I was in college at the time. I was 20, and all my classes got shut down, so they were all moved to Zoom. And I didn't even realize I was like a hustler at the time. But I was.
That sounds so bad, a hustler.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. I mean, I was like to pay my bills in college and to feed myself and like all these things. So I was cutting hair outside my dorm. And I was painting sneakers and selling them, and then I was also buying Jordans and flipping them. So that's how I just paid my way through like life back in college. And during the pandemic, TikTok was starting to blow up. Yeah. And my girlfriend sent me a TikTok. She was my girlfriend then, still my girlfriend, but she sent me a TikTok of Kong. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who he is.
Yeah, the Asian guy, right?
Asian guy, yeah. Talking about how you can make 10 grand in the next 30 days doing this thing called wholesaling real estate, and it takes no money and no license, and like it just sounded like a scam.
It does when you think about that, because real estate, there's so many moving parts, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people are kind of scared of it. They just don't know where to get started, right, and how things actually work.
For sure. And, you know, to further answer your question, so I watched this TikTok, and I remember I text her. I'm like, sounds like a scam.
Sounds like a scam.
But I was open-minded to it, and I ended up looking on YouTube instead of TikTok for a little bit more information on this wholesaling stuff. And I didn't go watch Kong's videos because I already kind of thought that it might have been a scam. But I came across another guy called Jerry Norton. Okay. And huge shout out to him. But at the time, he had maybe 10,000 subscribers. Yeah. Like I would message him, ask him questions, and he would respond. Like that's kind of how small.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah. And I don't want to say 10,000 is small, because I mean, imagine 10,000 people in a room. That's a lot of people. Yeah. But in comparison to like big YouTube channels like yours with, you know, a couple 100,000, 10,000 isn't as
And
large.
it's kind of fascinating at 10,000, you're still getting a reply, because can you still send him out a text and will he reply back now? Or?
I DM'd him a couple months ago, and I saw he read it.
Okay, at least he read it though.
Yeah. But anyway, so I binge watched Jerry Norton's content. Like I don't think there's a video on his channel at the time that I had not watched at least once or twice. And around this time, I'm watching Jerry's content on like how to wholesale. I start realizing, okay, this stuff is legit. I can make money as a broke college kid, you know, no license. I didn't have a degree, like just a broke college kid. And then I get this video recommended to me by some Filipino dude with like funky hair, talking about how he's flipping 100 houses a year in Vegas. And I'm like, I'm in Vegas. And he's like, oh, and I really resonated with this guy. I'm talking about Pineda. And he talks about how he used to be a professional athlete and how he's a Christian and how he's born and raised in Vegas. And I'm like, wow, like I can relate to a lot of that. I mean, I was never a professional athlete, but that's what I wanted to be growing up. I wanted to be in the NBA. Shout out to my Lakers. It sucks that we got swept.
Aren't you a little bit too short to be in the NBA?
Yeah, I am a little bit short, but I can still dunk on you though. So
oh, really?
Let's not even go there, man.
Like on a 10-foot rim?
Okay, I'm talking crap. I can't dunk, bro.
Okay, because here's the thing. I'm not good at basketball, but I got some good defense. That's all I got.
I'll still bang on you though. But.
I'm sure you will. Here's the thing. I'm not good at basketball, but I'm pretty athletic and I'm good at every other sport. But just something about basketball just does not work for me. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I will say I probably can't even jump anymore because I tore my ACL like a year ago. I had surgery and whatnot. Yeah. Which is actually why we have the same trainer now, because I wanted to lose the weight that I gained after my injury, because I was in a wheelchair for a while. But that's a different story. Yeah. Anyway, so I watched Ryan's video. He has like 500 followers. And I immediately resonate with what he's talking about. Yeah. And so I follow him on all social media platforms. I reach out to him. I'm like, dude, I'm a super fan, even though I've only watched like 3 videos of his. And then at the time, I forgot to tell you, I was also making my own YouTube videos. I was, like I said, I was a huge basketball fan. So I was making videos about the NBA and just giving my opinion on NBA games. And I grew my channel to maybe 30,000 subscribers.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible, you know?
That's real big.
And so then I saw Pineda posted on his Instagram story. He was saying, I'm looking for someone who can help me grow on social media. You must be interested in real estate and you must have knowledge on how to grow a social media channel. And I sent him a video talking, like a video application talking about why I would be the right guy. I'm like, dude, look at my own YouTube channel. 30,000 may not be like all that, but it's.
But you're doing something right.
But it's 30,000, more than what you currently have. I think I can help you a little bit. And I am interested in real estate. Look at all of your videos that I have commented on. He only had like 4 or 5 videos out at the time, but I had commented on all of them. I was like, wow, I learned something here. And I wasn't just blowing smoke. It was legit. Like I had learned stuff, and I really did look up to the guy, and I still do. And so I sent that video over to him, and he calls me the next day, and we have like an hour-long conversation. He invites me to his office. He hires me. And so I worked for him for almost 2 years. I helped him grow on social media. I was his social media manager for like a year and a half. And meanwhile, he was teaching me so much about wholesaling and flipping and buying rentals, and introduced me to his network, which I'm very grateful for. Like the network that I have now, a huge reason I have a big network is because of him. People think like, oh, Ray like built his network and he knows a lot of people. And sure, I do know a lot of people in business and real estate, but I can't even take credit for that. Literally, it's just people that he introduced me to or putting me in the right group. So that was just a really long answer to your question of kind of how I got into it. I mean, it all started with my girlfriend sending me a TikTok that ended up leading to me watching videos, to reaching out to Ryan, to him mentoring me. And then eventually I shook his hand. I thanked him for everything. And it was just kind of time for me to start my own thing.
Well, I can tell you just from that alone, I've already learned 3 things. And this is what I've taken away from it. Number 1 is that you found something that you were interested in, right? And what you did was you did a bunch of research, right? You followed the people that had the same likings as you. You reached on out to this person, right? You had the tenacity and the drive. You did everything that you could to get in front of them. And when you did that, you went to them and said, hey, look, I can help you, right? There was a trade-off. And I think that's where a lot of people fall off when they're trying to look for a mentor, right? They go to somebody and they're like, hey, can you help me? Well, you got to understand that person that's making millions of dollars, they don't have time for that. You got to go with something. And that's what you did. You provided him something. It was like, look, I can help you with your channel. And it was a win-win situation. So those are the 3 things I learned, and I think that's very important. So good job on that. Now,
thank you.
Let's get into wholesaling. Kind of briefly describe what is wholesaling.
Okay, so here is wholesaling in a nutshell. It's literally getting a contract signed with the seller to buy their house, but then instead of you buying their house, you sell that contract to somebody else at a higher price, and that person actually buys it. So let's say Chuck wants to sell me his house, and he's not in real estate. He and I are on the phone, and he tells me that he wants $300,000 for his house. And as a wholesaler, I'm not charging any commissions like a realtor does or anything like that. And typically we pay all their closing costs. So how am I going to make money? Chuck isn't paying me anything because, like I said, I'm not charging any commission, right? So the only way for me to make money is for me to go out there and find someone who would be willing to pay more than the $300,000 for that house. And so let's say I find Jason, because I know he was on this podcast and he's a good friend of ours. Jason says, hey, Ray, I'm willing to pay $320,000 for that house because I think if I pay $320,000 for that house, I'm going to be able to turn that property into X, Y, and Z investment, and it's going to be well worth me putting $320,000 into it because I'm going to make way more in return. I will take that contract that you and I signed, Chakits, for $300,000, and I will sell him that contract for $20,000. And the day that you and I had agreed on closing, so let's say we signed the contract today and then we agreed to close in 3 weeks, Jason would then wire $320,000 to escrow. Escrow would give you the $300,000 that was agreed upon, and then I would get $20,000, and that's it. Then Jason would get the house. So that is essentially how wholesaling works.
Wow, you make it sound like it's so easy.
I mean, it is simple.
It's simple, but there are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And this is where I want to start from the beginning, okay? How do you find great deals?
Okay, so there are like a billion ways to find great deals, but for anyone watching who wants to get into it, I would recommend that you only focus on one, because when you try focusing on all these different ones, you're going to be absolutely terrible at all of them. It's like it's better to be a master of one thing as opposed to a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will mention before I talk about how to find these deals is Chuck and I just talked about how it's very simple, because it is simple. However, I don't want to confuse simple with easy.
Yeah.
So the thing that I'll say is sure, you know, it's going well now, and sure, I have people on my team now, and like, you know, we're making good money now and whatnot. But one thing I forgot to mention earlier is it took me 9 months of doing this every single day. Like, I kid you not, every day, on my birthday, on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, I was actually getting cussed out over the phone, being like, it's Thanksgiving, why are you calling me?
So that's normal then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
so you're going to get beat up on the phone.
For sure. Okay. So it took me 9 months of doing this every single day before I actually got one contract to go all the way through. And that wasn't a $20,000 payday like the example that we just gave. Yeah. It was a $3,000 payday. Literally, you can make more money at McDonald's in 9 months. You can make more money. You can make more than $3,000 pretty much anywhere, you know, in the U.S. In 9 months. So sure, it may be simple. Like, all you really have to do is go get someone to agree to sell you their house, and then from there, go find someone who's willing to pay more. Like, that's really all you have to do, but it's easier said than done. It's like we talked about earlier. I wanted to be an NBA player. All you have to do is just play basketball, but there's so much more that goes into it. You have to be like the best, and you know, there's so much more. So I don't want to give the impression that you're going to step into this thing and make money tomorrow. And like, if you do, then that would be amazing. And I hope you do. But I don't want to have like that false expectation out there, because then when people don't see results in a week or 2 weeks, they're going to think that they suck, or they're going to think that they're a failure and they're going to quit. And that's just not how it works. If 2 weeks in you haven't gotten a deal, that's perfectly normal. It'd actually be kind of a miracle if you did. Yeah. So to answer your question of how to find deals, there's a billion different ways. And honestly, I just recommend you pick the one that works for you. So one way, there's free ways and there's paid ways. So like the most common way that people do is they'll go on a website like Batch Leads or PropStream, and that's not sponsored. We're not getting paid by them or anything.
We should, but go ahead.
We should use my buddy Ryan's code Home Run on Batch Leads, and he'll get he'll get money, and I think you'll get like half off or something like that. And if that code doesn't work, use my other friend's TTP.
Oh, TTP?
Yeah, that's Brett Daniels. So
okay,
yeah, there you go. You guys just got a discount. So you go on a website like Batch Leads.
Well, what is Batch Leads? Okay, explain that real quick.
Great question. So Batch Leads is a data provider. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, everyone's going to have limited marketing dollars. Even if you're a billionaire, like you can't just go drop $1 billion blindly somewhere and expect a return. It doesn't really work that way. So Batch Leads, it helps you figure out like where's like the best place to put your money. How does that all work? They're a data provider. So you just go in there, you type in the county or the city that you're in, and then you punch in different criteria, what exactly it is that you're looking for. So if you're looking to wholesale, a good criteria that I would give you, and if you're watching this, I would recommend you write this down, is you want to look for residential real estate, like single family, townhouses, condos, people who have at least 30% equity in their homes, because you need to contract these properties at a discount. You want people who have owned their house for at least 5 years, and then you want people who do not live in the house. So you want to look for absentee owners. If you type that into your search criteria, it's going to narrow it down, because you don't want to just market to every house in Las Vegas. You're going to blow through all your marketing dollars. Yeah. So just punch in that criteria. Send me a DM if you need help. It's at Ray R. Rodriguez _ on Instagram, and I'll help you out. But it's pretty simple. You should be able to. Anyone should be able to figure it out. And then from there, you can just pay for a list of people, and then put that list into a skip tracing software. Skip tracing is when you put an address in, and then you get a phone number and a name back. So if I put in 123 Main Street, it's going to tell me Chakits Krulsawat owns 123 Main Street, and it's going to give me Chakits' phone number and maybe his email address. So from there, you're going to take all those numbers, cold call them, ask if they're interested in selling. If they are, then you ask them a bunch of other questions. To be brief, how much they want, the condition, why they want to sell, and when they want to sell. We call those the 4 pillars. You guys agree on everything, you sign a contract, then you sell that contract. Now, I know that was a lot of information, but that is like the most common way to find deals. However, we started this episode off by saying that we can do this for free, which we actually can. So even though that is the most common way, that's not really the way that I do it. The way that I do it is I don't spend a single dollar marketing. Well, I do now, but a lot of our deals are still free. All we do is we go on Zillow. Well, I go on the MLS because I am licensed, but
what is the MLS?
MLS is basically Zillow for realtors. That's the best way I can describe it for people who aren't in real estate. Yeah. It's just a lot more, what's a good word? It's like just a lot more, there's a lot more information on there than on Zillow. You can narrow things down a little bit. But if all you have is Zillow, that's going to be perfectly fine. I know people making good money and all they have is the Zillow app. Go on there, and realtors are going to hate me for saying this, but just lowball every single house that you see for sale. You see 123 Main Street for sale. You see the realtor selling it. There's going to be a phone number right there. Call the realtor and offer them like 60% of what Zillow says the property is worth. So if Zillow says it's worth 500,000, 60% of that I think is what, 300 grand. So say, hey, look, like, I mean, this probably is never going to work for your seller, and I understand, but you know, I'm $300,000 cash. Most realtors are going to tell you just go screw off, and that's okay. You're going to have to do that about 1,000 times, and then you'll get one person who says yes. So we try to do about 1,000 of these a week.
So you're writing 1,000 offers a week, or are you just calling?
In total, so between like calls, texts, emails, and actual contracts, we're sending about 1,000 a week out. And then
so this is the free way to do it.
Yeah, this is literally free. There's no one can give me an excuse saying that they don't have money to do this. All you have to do, open up the Zillow app and start making offers. Call them, text them, email them, send them an actual contract, whatever. Just go ahead and put a number in front of them.
Okay. So the other way, you were saying that if you got a little bit money, we can go through batch leads. But as we go through batch leads, there's certain criteria that you're going to input, which is you're going to find single family residence, which consists of detached homes, condos, townhomes. And at that point, you want to find homes that people owned it for 5 years, right?
Yep.
And absentee owners, which means that they own the home, but they're probably renting it out. Okay. Then from there, once you get that list, you're sending it over to Skip Trace.
Yep.
So now you embed into that system that allows you to get the number and also the email address, which will cost you money, but it's a lot easier to call because now you're going directly to them versus if you went through the MLS, which is the multiple listing service, and you're dealing with the agent. The spreads are probably going to be a little bit harder, I would say, because there's a commission involved. And if you find a home at $500,000 and a 6% commission, that's a $30,000 commission. Where if you were at the head of the curve and went through the batch leads, then went to Skip Trace, you can probably save yourself more money, but you're spending more money up front. That's kind of like what it sounds like, right?
Exactly. So you are typically going to get a better deal when you're going direct to the seller. Because for the reason you just mentioned, right? If I offer sellers $300,000 and they have to pay 6% of that, that's 18 grand. I might as well have paid the money up front and agreed on $272 with the seller. The net to the seller is the exact same amount, except here now I'm making an extra 18. So if you can't afford to go spend money, then I would recommend you do that. Right now so we get deals for free and then we also pay for marketing. On our paid marketing right now, it costs us around $4,000 per deal. And you know, we have experience. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. So if you're brand new, it might be a little bit more than that. So I just share that so you can kind of figure out with your budget what you want to do. But I think going on market and the freeway is perfectly fine. Literally 80%, I'd say like 90% of our revenue comes from free deals. Like,
and that's very impressive. And I'm glad that you're sharing that, because if you can literally do this with no money, but you have the drive and the tenacity, you can actually win. Okay. Now, also, what about like driving for dollars? Have you ever done that?
Not really. I just don't think it's very efficient. I'm not going to sit in my car looking for ugly houses all day to find one house, to then go have to put it in batch Skip Trace to go find their contact information, to then call them, for them to then tell me that they don't want to sell. Like, I just think it's just not like the best use of time or resources. Now I do have people that drive around that send me addresses, but I don't have, like, they're people who are already driving anyway. Like, if I get in an Uber for some reason, I'll tell the Uber driver what I do, and then I'll tell them, hey, look, send me ugly addresses when you're just driving around. And if I end up buying any of them or wholesaling any of them, I'll give you at least $1,000. So I do have people that like send me stuff because they're already driving. Like my friend, shout out to Izzy, she sends me some like all the time. But have we actually gotten a deal from that? I don't think so.
Okay. Now, instead of doing this batch lead, right, and sending over to Skip Tracing, right, one thing that I've noticed now with the title companies, when you pull a farm, and what the farm is basically you can contact your title company, build a relationship with the escrow officer, set up the same criteria here. My criteria is a little bit different, right? So you can set up any criteria you want, but I think this is the most important part, and this is where people fall off, is how you set up that criteria, right? Because there's certain criteria you can look for, like people are divorced, judgments against the property. You can do like certain addresses, certain like zip codes, certain counties, and certain areas, right? And I think also for me, like what's important is you have to really take a look at your market as a whole, right? And figure out where are these homes moving, right? Like here in Vegas, the price point, anything below the 500 range, they go like this, right? And that's what investors like, because you have to have that back-end buyer. But I noticed the title company now, when you pull these farms, it also comes with the telephone number. Sometimes you get the email where they automatically do the skip tracing for you too as well, which is nice. So if you're able to build that relationship with that escrow officer, you can bypass all of this and save some money. You may not get the correct numbers, but you can get the mailing address. And once you have the mailing address, what I've found that has worked for me in the past is not only to make the calls, but also to send out letters. Because we have a team next door that I have one of my agents, he contacts all the sellers, right? But we actually send this to a third-party company that's out in the Philippines, and they do about 1,000 calls a day, and they screen the potential sellers. If it sounds like it's a real good deal and it makes sense where they need to sell versus wanting to sell, that actually goes over to my agent. Then my agent will actually call because it pops up on my Excel spreadsheet. And that's what has worked for me. And that's more of a system in place. So I don't want you guys to get confused here. I'm kind of jumping ahead. But systems and processes is important, but also how you set up your criteria as well. Because if we look here at 30% equity position, I feel like when I pull the farms, I want people that own the property free and clear, because that gives me more of a spread to get those type of deals, right? But again, it's really up to you on how you want to do it. Now we have the system in place, okay? You're making calls, you land a buyer, right? Oh, I'm sorry. You're having a conversation with the seller. You're going under contract, okay? Now, how are these terms with the contract? Like, how does this work? Like, how do I get a contract? Do I write it up myself? Or, like, if somebody's getting started, what do they do now where they're like, okay, a home is worth $500,000, right? After the repair value. But I'm picking it up for $200,000, but I'm going to wholesale for $250,000, let's just say. Do I got to get an attorney? Like, how does all this work? How do I get that information, like contracts and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, pretty simple. You can have an attorney draft it up, but just send me a DM and I'll send you my contract. Like it's really that simple.
But you also got to buy his course.
No, so
it's on its way.
Yeah, so I don't have any sort of courses or anything. I mean, before Chakits, before we got on camera, Chakits was asking me like, how come you don't sell any coaching? And I told him it's just not something I feel like too comfortable doing right now. So I really don't sell anything.
But be on the lookout.
Yeah, maybe at some point,
I want to push you.
Yeah. But if you send me a DM and if you're not like totally rude about it, I'll send you a contract.
Yeah, he's got like you. He actually sent me one of his wholesale contracts. It's actually pretty clean and pretty on point. It's very simple. And what I like about it is like you can use it over and over again. It's just you just plug and play.
Yeah.
You just have the different name, right? The terms are already there, and you just put the closing date and basically the price. That's it.
Yeah. And that contract, I mean, I'm not an attorney, so like, don't sue me, bro. But that contract is pretty much good nationwide because it's not even my contract. It's Ryan Pineda's, and he has given that to all his students nationwide. And there's like literally thousands of students in his coaching program that use that contract. And there's people in every single state I know using that contract. So if you wanted, just send me a DM, and maybe there's a way that we can even work together on that deal. I can show you what to do, or I can help you lock up that seller. I can help you find a buyer or whatever. So just message me.
You know what? You just made a good point. So you don't have a coaching program, right, online, but what you're willing to do, and this is kind of going back to bird dogging, right? If you guys can find a deal but don't know how to put it together, my man Ray right here can actually help you out and walk you through it. But then also you would have to pay him, right? And sometimes people are like, hey, I don't want to give up, half of my commission, but that tells me that you're not really into it, right?
Yeah.
Like when I first started real estate, dude, I was giving half of my commission. I didn't care. I just wanted to learn the process. It's kind of like an intern, right?
For sure.
Here's the thing. Before you start giving stuff away for free, the answer is no. We're not just going to give it away for free, right? The only time you're going to give it away for free is that you're going to partner up with my man Ray, and he's going to help you and walk you through. And you got to give him something. And I think that's the right thing to do, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Because there's value in this, right? You shouldn't be giving everything away for free. So,
you're right.
And at the end of the day, you know, he can give you the contract for free, but then what's the next step? You don't know what the next step is. He does. So I think this is important, okay? So now we're under contract. Like, how long is the close of escrow date? Because you tie up a contract, right? You open up escrow, which is a third-party company, right? Now escrow is open. Is there a deposit that you put down?
So yes and no. And one thing I want to backtrack a tiny bit, because I don't even know. There's people that are so small-minded, and it kind of annoys me.
Yeah.
I've had people in my DMs before. They're like, "Hey Ray, can you help me with like this every step of the deal, right? Like finding the seller, locking it up, contracting it, finding the buyer, escrow one, like all these things." And they're like, "Oh, I don't want to cut you in on the deal at all. Like, I want you to do everything." Or something else that I've had happen a lot is I'm in a lot of Facebook groups for like real estate investors in Vegas. And then a lot of new people are in the group. And then I'll see someone got a property under contract and they have it under contract for 300 and it's worth 325 and they think it's a deal.
That's not a deal.
And so then I'll reach out to that person and I say, "Hey, let me mentor you. Let me help you out. Because I see you at least have some sort of hustle. If you went out there and found someone to sign a contract with you, you may not know what the heck you're doing, but you at least have some sort of hustle." And to my surprise, like some people are so narrow-minded that they get mad about that. I'm like, dude, like I'm just trying to help you, and like I don't know. And I will say, to put my money where my mouth is, like I mentioned earlier, I learned a lot from Pineda. The first deal that we ever did together, I gave up 90% of the commission. So I took 10%, he took 90. And I was perfectly okay with that because
now you know how to do it.
I learned so much,
Yeah.
and then. I would say, I mean, I'd have to look at my sheet to see exactly how many deals he and I did together. In the 30s, like 30 something. For the majority of those deals, I was giving him 70% and taking 30%, and I was totally okay with that because let's say it's we made 30 grand on a house, and I made 10 grand, and he made the other 20. What I learned made in the future ended up making me way more than the 20 that I gave up.
Yeah.
So, I like him and I working together, I probably made him a couple $1,000,000, and that's perfectly okay with me because everything that I learned or the people that I got introduced to, once I went off and did my own thing, I mean, we're doing pretty well to the point where I have staff and like all, talking about overhead with you earlier before the show and whatnot. So I guess what I'm getting at is, don't be so like small-minded to thinking, "Oh, I have to have 100% of everything." Like, no, be a little more willing to, have someone help you and give up a portion of the pie because you're going to learn a lot and then make a lot more in the long run doing that.
That's a very good point. Yeah. So now, EMD, like how much is like the earnest money deposit to tie up these deals into an escrow account?
Okay, so an earnest money deposit is when you and a seller agree, you sign paperwork that you're going to buy that house.
Yeah.
Within a couple business days, you have to put down a small deposit. That's called the earnest money deposit that Chuck's talking about. How much is it? Well, truthfully, it's just whatever you guys agree on. When I'm going directly to the seller, if there's no realtors involved, typically I'm doing $500. And the way that I make it sound like a statement, not like a negotiation or anything. I say, "Hey, look, I'm going to put $500 in escrow to show you that I'm serious." And I think I've gotten pushback on that once. One time I had a guy say that $500 wasn't enough money. And so we agreed on $1,000. So if you're talking directly to a seller, $500 is fair. But typically when these properties are on the MLS, these realtors are going to require somewhere around like 1% of the purchase price. So if it's $300,000 that you agree on, it's probably going to be around $3,000. Now, believe it or not, even though I'm just wholesaling these properties, I actually have only put my own earnest money into a house like maybe 3, no more than 5 times. The way that I do it is, let's say I'm the wholesaler and I lock a property up.
Yeah.
In the contract, it says I have, let's say, 3 business days to put my earnest money in. I say, okay, great. My earnest money is going to be $3,000. That's what me and the seller agreed on in this case. I'm going to go find my buyer in the first 1 or 2 days. And so let's say, Chuck, you're my buyer. I'm going to say, hey, look, I will assign this deal to you for $320. But your earnest money is going to be $5,000 and it's due tomorrow. So let's say you and I lock up a property, or I lock up a property with the seller today, and my earnest money with the seller is $3,000 and it's due Monday, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to assign it to you, and I'm going to say, hey, look, you have to have your earnest money in by Monday or Friday of the following week, and it's $5,000. So,
Why $5,000? Now we got $3,000. The seller wants, but then you're telling your end buyer $5,000.
Yeah.
Who gets that $2,000? Why are we going higher on that?
So here's how that works, right? I owe the seller, if I don't perform, I owe the seller $3,000. Now I'm assigning this to you because you're saying you're going to perform, you're going to close, and everything's going to go well. Now, if you end up not performing, I owe the seller $3,000. I'm taking your $5,000. I'm giving 3 to the seller, and I'm pocketing 2.
So that way, at least you're making money regardless.
Yeah.
Okay, which is very smart, and I think that would actually work. Now, let's talk about, how do I find buyers?
It's actually like probably one of the easiest things to do. Like finding the seller and getting it under contract is for sure, in my opinion, the hardest part of this whole thing. Finding buyers is super easy. I mean,
if you got a deal, you got buyers for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you got a deal, like if you really have a deal, you'll have buyers like lining up to buy it off you. Like
because they know you got a deal.
Like we just wholesaled one. I made $65K wholesaling that one. I had buyers lined up like waiting to buy it.
Wait, is that your biggest wholesale deal?
So far, yeah.
$65K.
Yeah, this closed like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Damn, one deal, $65K.
Yeah.
Dude, $65K, man. You can change somebody's life, man.
Yeah, and guess how much we spent marketing that one? Zero.
Zero.
Zero, dude. That one was a free one.
And off of MLS, or somebody gave you this deal?
So, this one, another thing that we do that you guys can try as well, if you don't want to spend money right away, is we cold call realtors all day long. So, just say, hey, Chuck, looking for a fixer, whatever. And every so often, someone will have one. And they're already representing the seller. Even though I am a licensed realtor, I don't really do anything with my license. I don't care for being a realtor.
Yeah.
Except on the houses that I buy myself, I represent myself. So whenever a realtor brings me a deal, and if you're a realtor in Vegas, I hope you're like listening to this. If you have a deal, I want you to represent me as your buyer. I want you to have the full 6% commission. Get your 3% from the seller, and then you'll get 3%. From the seller again, but for representing me. So that guy was super thrilled that he was like, bro, like you really let me like represent you, and you're a realtor, and I got both sides of the commission. I'm like, yeah, I was super cool with that. And then like a month ago, same thing. We let a realtor, she brought us one off market, and we locked it up for $260. That's what her and her seller and I agreed on. And then I had a buyer at $300, so we made $40 assigning that. And both of those deals were like within the past month.
Now, don't you think that this would be the real estate agent's fault for not listing the property even higher? Because think about it. I mean, you got it for $260, and then you flipped it for $300,000. That tells me that agent probably didn't run the comps correctly and didn't know what the value of that property was.
So I used to think that as well. But the majority of the deals that I'm getting from agents, like these are like top producers. Like these are people who are selling like 50 to 100 plus homes a year. And every so often I ask them, I'm like, hey, how come you okay, so I'll give you a really good example actually. The guy that I got that one deal from that I made $65,000 on, he brought me another one within like a week of that one closing. And I'm like, yeah, man, I want this one too. Like that one was a phenomenal deal as well. Probably would have made like another 50 wholesaling that one. And then I call him and I'm like, hey, just wondering, are we getting this contract signed or what? And he's like, hey, this seller opposed to my other seller wants me to put the property on the market to see how much money we can drive for it. Whereas the first seller, they didn't want that property on the market at all. And everyone's gonna like, a lot of people, to my surprise when I first started, a lot of people don't want their house on the market, and it could be for a multitude of reasons. And so if there's pros and cons to everything, right? Like you want to go on the market, you're probably going to have to do X, Y, and Z to your house. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer. But most of the people who are, I want to say like 95% of people whose houses I buy or whose houses I wholesale, they're people who don't have time to go on the market. Like these people are selling their house to me at a discount because they have some sort of pain in their life, like a death or a big death in the family. Or I had someone sell me their house at a huge discount because he said that he walked in on his wife cheating on him with his brother, and he was like, dude, I'm getting a divorce, I want out of here like next week, can you close on this house in 5 days?
So you're finding people that actually, you know, they want and they need to sell, like ASAP.
Someone who wants to sell, I'll refer you out to a realtor. Someone who needs to sell, you and I are going to work together.
So this is a great prime example. When I was out in Hawaii, Jeremy, you know Jeremy, another
Jeremy Lewis or who?
No, Jeremy Mateo.
Oh yeah, that's my guy.
So I don't know if I just said his last name wrong.
No, I mean that's how I say it too. So unless we're both wrong. But.
Oh, whatever's anyway. So he found this great deal in a very affluential neighborhood, very expensive neighborhood. It's in Hawaii Kai, and he stole this property now. And I asked him, I was like, how'd you get this property, right? And there was only like pictures on the outside. They wanted to get rid of the property right away because Hawaii's like one of those places where, you know, it's very cultural, where one family knows the family, like the whole neighborhood knows the whole neighborhood because they've grown up from generation to generation. And some people are very private, and the house was a disaster. So they just was embarrassed. They just want to get rid of it, and they just wanted to move on. And that's how he actually got that deal. But there was a lot of work that needed to be done. But I think he broke even on that deal. However, you know, that's just a prime example where somebody's just like, hey, I don't want to put my property on the market. I just want to sell it. I just want to get rid of it.
Yeah. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised because I talk to a lot of realtors, and a lot of the realtors who I talk to, every house they sell is like the most gorgeous house in the neighborhood. Like they're selling the Anthem Country Clubs and whatnot. And they can't wrap their head around like why someone wouldn't want to put their house on the market. And I used to think the exact same thing. Like
I still do think like that sometimes.
Yeah. And every so often, or not every so often, but every time that I talk to a seller, there's questions that I take them through to figure out whether or not we're a good fit. Like there's a guy on my team who his entire job is to qualify or disqualify a seller. If we disqualify them, we're going to kick them out to a realtor, have them list the property, whatever. Qualifying a seller is someone who needs to sell. They don't care about getting the most amount of money for the home. I'll give you an example of, you know, we were talking about our mutual friend Vlad earlier, who I wholesaled a house to him. You know, so I wholesaled him his house. This seller, I was talking to the seller. She didn't want to go on the market. She didn't want to do any of that stuff. The reason she sold me her house at such a great deal was because her son is in a gang, and her son was living at home with her up until a couple weeks before I met her, because he like went to prison and whatnot. But according to her, rival gang members were always breaking into her house and like scaring, like she was terrified. So she didn't want anyone to know that she was selling the house. She just wanted, you know, things to be like quiet, low key. She's like, Ray, I don't want this house on the market. I want my money. I want to get out of here quietly. I don't want anyone to know, you know, that this is happening or anything. And this poor lady, you know, she's living in her bedroom, and I'm walking the house with her, and she's like, you see that window right there? It's it's a window right right behind her bed, and the window's all cracked. I'm like, yeah, I see it. She's like, yeah, one of my son's like rival gang members broke that window and broke into the house, and like I was in here, and it scared me. They were looking for him and everything, and she's like, I just want out of here. So she sold me her house because her sense of safety was worth way more to her than getting top dollar for her house. I mean, if I were in her position, I think I would have done the exact same thing. So not everyone is a good fit to work with a wholesaler. Wholesalers are going to work with someone who you need us. If you need top dollar, there's really two reasons people sell their house from what I've learned. Either because they're in some sort of pain or because they're looking to gain something. If you're looking to gain something, like if we're on the phone with the seller and they're telling us, oh, my wife and I are expecting a kid, we want a bigger house or whatever, we're not going to be a good fit for you. Your best bet is to go get top dollar listing with the top listing agent in town. We'll refer those out all day long. But if someone's telling us like, hey, you know, a situation like that one, or I had someone else who they had a family member who was going to die unless they got like a $50,000 surgery. And they're like, hey, I'll sell you my house. Can you close in 3 days? I'm like, well, can title close in 3 days? I called title. Title says yes. And we got it done. They're super grateful, right? They don't want to go on the market. They don't need top dollar. They just need money as fast as possible. So that is a good client for wholesale.
Okay. Now, what are the percentage, like when you're running the numbers, like what are the margins you're looking at?
Yeah. So
to say this is a great deal.
So it really depends on a lot of things. And I put everything in a calculator, but a good rule of thumb, and I can even send you guys my calculator if you want to use it as well. But Chakits won't let me give it away for free.
That's right.
Yeah, you already know the rule, Chakits, but if you want my calculator, just DM me, I'll send it over. A good rule of thumb is I need to buy it at a 30% discount. So if it's worth 500,000, I need it for like 300. And yeah, or is that a 30% discount? I feel like that's kind of
what is it? 30?
I feel like that's a 40% discount, but yeah, a 30% discount is typically good, unless, and this doesn't really apply to me because we're in Vegas, but if you're watching this and you live in like the Midwest or somewhere where properties are a lot cheaper, you probably need to buy it at like an 80% discount from what I've heard from some of my friends who are in
so every
cities.
Market is completely different, and this is where I go back to say, hey, you got to know your market and you got to know your zip code, because at the end of the day, you got to know what you're buying. And also, you don't want to be buying like a big home where you're trying to wholesale in like 10 days and you can't find somebody to like, a back end buyer that's going to spend $3 million. You know what I mean? It's the chances of you finding like somebody that's flipping properties at the 400 at this price point. There's tons of them, because a lot of guys that are flipping properties at the 400, they know that property is going to move a lot quicker versus like I got friends right now, they're flipping homes like, $3, $4, $5 million. That shit is still sitting on the market.
Yeah.
So they have to get it such at a great price from you, and you got to get it such at a steep discount, and also you got to be making some money too as well. So that's why I think just knowing your market and kind of knowing where that barometer is as far as like the target audience, where that property is going to move a lot faster. So it's a win-win situation, right?
For sure. Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, in Vegas, 30% discount, or maybe 25, maybe even 20 if it doesn't need any work at all. If I can just buy it and throw it on the market as is, or buy it and keep it as a rental as is. I mean, it really just depends, but 30% is a pretty good rule of thumb. Yeah,
like I don't want to say wholesale properties, but I've wholesaled a couple to like my friends that are investors, and you know who they are. You know what I mean? Like some big guys out here, but a lot of stuff that I do, I just buy it for myself, but I noticed like the margins, I'm buying it not at a 30% discount. Like I need at least 40%. And the reason why is because the cost for me to rehab a property, right? Because I don't do this for a living. And I think I've only done like maybe like 5 in my lifetime. And I have a general idea. But the cost for me to do it, it's a lot more expensive for guys that do this for a living, right? Because all I do is buy and sell real estate, for my clients. But, every time a deal comes across my desk, I know it's a great deal, right? I'll take it down. And, I'll rehab it. And my intentions are always to rent out the property, but I end up selling the property.
Yeah. Well, if I could help you out with that,
yeah.
Something that I do, because I have a lot of people who are constantly hitting me up saying, hey, Ray, I want to like buy your deals. And a lot of these people, they're not really in real estate, or they're realtors, but they don't have a good amount of contractors that can do work for them cheap. What I do a lot of times is I say, hey, buy the deal off of me, and I will give you my general contractors, and they'll go do the work for you at the price that that they would charge me. And it's a win for everybody, because the contractors, they're always like, Ray, thank you so much for like more work, because they're looking for work.
Yeah.
And they're already willing to do it at the price that they're doing it for me at. So all I do is I just send that person to, I send that contractor to the person who's buying my deal, and boom, there you go. So like my contractors are doing work pretty much half off because we're keeping them busy.
What are you getting for a price per square foot?
Yeah, so it's around like $30 a foot.
Oh yeah,
that's typically what
that's great, dude. Honestly, I'm like at $45 a square foot. However, that is kind of my fault, because I kind of use like more expensive material, and I start getting emotionally involved. And you know how you get emotionally involved in some of these flips, you start adding more than you should. That's me.
Gotcha. Yeah. So something that I do, because I always want to keep like my emotions outside of my business.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something I could actually do better at. Like right now I'm refinancing a house that I probably should just sell. Like I have to go put $100,000 into it, like as a down payment to refi. And I should probably just sell it, but we're closing on it next week, and whatever, I'll just go drop the $100,000 and just leave it in there as a down payment on the refi. But because I feel like I would have the same issue as you with getting emotionally involved, what I do is I actually have a project manager, and he's actually my dad. So what the project manager does is he's in charge of all the construction. And I'm Puerto Rican, so like my first language is Spanish, and like my dad speaks fluent Spanish. And all these contractors, they're Hispanic as well. So it works really well for my dad.
So you guys got to connect. See, I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, so my dad knows, like, hey, nothing emotional here. He gets graded by me, and with all respect to my father, but he gets graded on if it's on time and on budget. And he knows if we're doing all these like fancy things, like adding chandeliers and like crap that doesn't need to happen, because that's not going to increase the value of the property. Like people think that it does, but you and I being in real estate, we know that like a nice chandelier isn't worth $20K more. Isn't going to make your house worth $20K more. So as long as he keeps it on time and on budget, we're good. And that way it takes my emotion out of it. And he's a great father. So I know he's always like, oh, I'm going to save my son as much money as possible, and things go well. So
somebody asked, says Ray, when you sign a property in Las Vegas, does the other party know that you are selling it for, or what you are selling it for?
It really all depends. So that it's called a settlement statement. So when you go to a title company and to buy or sell a house, the title company is going to show you a settlement statement that just has all the fees, and in there is the assignment fee. Now, my title company, believe it or not, I actually don't really look at the settlement statement ever, but they've told me that they have it so that my assignment fee doesn't show up on the seller side. I haven't looked at it, so don't quote me on that, but that's what they've told me. I wonder how that would like all balance out. So in that regard, no. Now it does show up on the buyer side. They'll see how much you're making. Now, sometimes like when I'm making like a lot of money, like on this $65,000 deal, I made $65K, just like that one was pretty easy. And so I didn't want the buyers really seeing that I was making 65, because that was my first deal working with them. And I didn't want them to be like, oh man, I need a $30,000 discount like last minute or something like that. So what you can do is you can do what's called a double close, which means you actually have to buy the property and then you resell it.
So you bought it with your own money?
No, I borrowed money. I borrowed money, which I could have bought it with my own money. But I wanted to have a relationship with this one realtor in town who's doing a ton of deals. Shout out to Donovan Reyes. He's sold like over 100 deals every single year, like the last like 4 or 5 years. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I could just go spend a little bit of money right now and get that money back in like 24 hours. But I asked that guy if I can borrow, I think it was like $165,000. I said, hey, can I borrow 165 grand for a couple days? And I paid him 1% on top of that. And like all he had to do was just send me the money, and then I sent it right back to him a couple days later, plus an extra like $1,700, just because I wanted to have a relationship with him. So the reason I share that is if you have the money yourself, you can go buy it with your own cash. But if you don't have the money, just go borrow the money from somebody else. And if you don't know anyone with that type of money, just send me a DM. I can either give you the money myself if it's under like, a couple $100,000.
How do you get somebody to trust you?
Okay, so
I mean, that's a lot of money.
So here's kind of how people are like kind of willing to give me money because they watch my little TikToks and whatnot. But even then, how are they protected? Because like, God forbid, let's say something were to happen to me, right? Like, and like you never know. What I do is I give them 2 documents and they get recorded against the property. So it's a note and a deed of trust. Long story short, that paperwork basically protects that person's interests, same way it would protect the bank. So if I don't pay them back, they can foreclose, they can sell the house, they get all their money back. There's a little bit more that goes into it than that, but those 2 documents, that should make your lender feel pretty comfortable. And if you're not too familiar with how those documents work, you can send me a DM, and I've done like more than 30 of these, actually, closer to 50. By now, I can help you out, or you might be better off just asking your escrow officer, because it might be a little different state to state.
Okay. Now, they do say that, well, an agent says that it's actually required to be disclosed in California. So it's not required to be disclosed here in Nevada. Is that correct?
No, it's definitely not required to be disclosed. Could it be in California? Maybe. I mean, laws vary state to state, but I mean, I have no problem disclosing it. I mean, ever, because 1, we're not doing anything wrong. 2, this is a for-profit business. As much as I like to donate money and like, I give to my church and all that stuff, I'm here to make money. I'm not going to lie about it, right? Like, do you do real estate for fun? No, you enjoy it, but like, we're here to make money. And so a lot of, everything that I say to like a seller is pretty much scripted. So one of the things that I tell them is that, I let them know I'm not going to charge them any sort of commissions or realtor fees or stuff like that, but that I will be collecting my fee from the buyer at no charge to them. So unless I know I'm going to buy that house myself, I'll give you an example. Let's say a seller really wants $300,000, and I think $300,000 is probably what I could wholesale it for. I think if I got it for like $280,000, it would be better. But at $300,000, I'm not sure if I can really go find anyone above that. I will let them know. I'm like, hey, look, my job here is not to be the person who is actually buying your house. My job is to send your property out to my network of investors, and they're going to pay me a fee on their end for bringing this property over to them.
So you're just being upfront and you're disclosing what's going on.
Because here's why, right? Like I said earlier, the people who are selling their houses to me, they're people who need to sell. They're not people who want to sell. So I don't want to put someone in a situation where they pack all their crap up. Like these people are in like a lot of mental distress, and then 2 days before closing, I call them. I'm like, hey, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a buyer. Sorry. And then I send them a cancellation. Like, I don't want to put someone in that position. So if I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to be able to like wholesale that property, I'm going to let them know, like, hey, look, just so you know, I'm not buying this house at this price. If you're really dead set on this number and you won't take a penny less, we can try, but these are going to be like the expectation. So I let them know it's not guaranteed that I am going to be able to make something happen at that number. Cause again, I just think if that was my grandparent or something, right. And like they were under the impression that we were actually going to close. So I let them know. And I think what I found is the more honest that I am with people, whether it be in business or in my personal life or whatever, the better things work out. So I really don't have a problem ever telling people that I'm wholesaling their house. Even on the MLS, I was a little afraid at first to, disclose that I'm wholesaling, because I was afraid that listing agents wouldn't want to accept my offer. But I have to put in every single contract my LLC and or assigns. And I get agents all the time asking me like, oh, what's that for? And I'll just tell them straight up. And I've only had one time where an agent got upset that I was like making a wholesale fee on it. I'm like, dude, you had this house on the MLS, literally advertising it to the world. And I found a buyer willing to pay more for that house than you. And you were the one advertising it. So, I mean,
what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And your seller's getting everything that they signed off on. You're getting your full commission. So, typically I don't really run into any issues with it. And I haven't ever ran into an issue with the seller. On the contrary, like these people are happy. And I've been in that situation too, where, I'll give you an example. My friend in Austin, Texas, he's a super successful realtor out there. Like, he's selling like 50 million worth of real estate every year. But he doesn't do any wholesale. And so he has a wholesale deal that he needed my help on. And he released his EMD to the seller. It was like a $10,000 EMD. And this is a really good friend of mine, and he's not sure how the whole wholesale process works. At first, we thought we could get a $100,000 assignment on this property based on his numbers. And I don't know anything about Austin, Texas. So I'm just going off of his numbers. And literally, so today's Wednesday. We're supposed to close on Friday. And the best offer that we got was for the price that he has it under contract for.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, I would have never taken $100,000 less. But because right now we're very motivated and I don't want my friend to lose his earnest money, this is the only person who we have willing to buy it and close in 2 days. So that my friend can at least get his deposit back. Or, I mean, it's already released to the seller. It's getting kind of complicated now. But the point that I'm making here is, I know what it's like to be a motivated seller because I'm motivated for my friend. So I don't care if someone makes more money than me on these houses. Same way a seller doesn't really care if I make money.
So have you assigned a contract to the point where your back-end buyers decide that they don't want to move forward because your wholesale fees are just too high? The numbers are not going to make any sense?
No.
How do you avoid that?
Yeah, so we can either double close it so that they don't see it, right? Like if I'm assigning a house to you right now, anything over 50,000, I'm going to double close it because I don't want that risk of like you saying that I'm making 50 grand and then you're like, Ray, I'm only going to pay you 30 grand less for this house now. And it's closing day and now we have a huge dispute, right? So
So you're always doing double closing then?
Only if I'm making more than 50,000 on a house, which our average deal makes my company 22,000. So it's not like super common, but we've had that twice this year where we had like a good amount of money coming in on one particular house. So if I don't want you to see it, I'm gonna buy it and then resell it to you within 24 hours. But what I prefer to do, because whenever you buy it, you have to pay closing costs and transfer taxes and all that. So it eats into my wholesale fee. What I prefer to do, kind of how we talked about a couple seconds ago, is I just rather be super upfront and honest with my buyer. So I'll say, I just had this conversation with someone the other day. I said, hey, look, before we sign anything, I want you to know that the price that you and I agreed on, I'm going to make a lot of money, like more than what the average person makes in an entire year. When you see that in the contract, is that going to be a problem for you? And a smart, experienced, knowledgeable investor is never going to have a problem with that because they know they're still going to make money anyway. It's typically like the newbies or people who are small-minded again that don't want other people making money.
Yeah.
Like if I sell a deal to Pineda right now, I've seen him pay someone. I saw him pay someone a $250,000 assignment fee on a property on a luxury house that he actually moved into. And he had no problem with that. So I prefer to just be honest with the buyer and tell them, hey, look, I'm going to make a lot of money on this. Is that an issue for you? And if they're kind of getting weird about it or something, I'll either double close it or just sell it to somebody else.
Now let's talk about the buyers, your back-end buyers. How do I find these back-end buyers?
So you can go into a Facebook group, type in like your city real estate investors in Facebook and join all the groups. Or you can go connect with like a big wholesaler. If you're in Vegas and you have a deal and you need a buyer, call me. I'll either buy it myself or I'll help you find a buyer. Every so often, so I do coaching in Ryan Pineda's coaching program. Like we talked about, I don't have my own that I do. And a lot of my students are in different states. And so I'll help them get a property under contract. And I don't really know anyone in like Texas or whatever. So what I do in that case is I will Google sell my house fast for cash, Houston, Texas. And then there will be like 10 house buying companies in Houston. I will call them and I say, hey, look, I'm a wholesaler. What can you offer me on this property? So finding a buyer is actually pretty easy. Finding a deal is super tough.
So that's the hard part, just finding the deals.
Yeah, because I mean, as you can imagine, it's not every day that someone needs to sell their house for basically half off. So like finding a deal is tough.
Okay. So we're about to end this show here shortly. So you've been doing this now, how many years?
So
total.
I started in November of 2020, but I didn't get my first deal until August of 21. So like I've been trying to do this for like 2.5 years, but I haven't actually been like making money on it for like a year and a half. So
this year you're crushing it.
Somewhat.
There you go. So obviously you're making 6 figures. So where do you see yourself in the next like 5 years?
Tough, because I mean, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have even seen myself here. 5 years ago, I was an 18-year-old in college. I thought I wanted to be an engineer.
Yeah.
I had a scholarship for engineering. So like, if you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have said that I would have been getting a master's or a PhD in engineering. And I actually had a job offer from Tesla, and that's like a whole separate story. So it's really tough to tell you like where I think I'd be 5 years from now. But in a perfect world, I mean, definitely a multimillionaire.
Where do you see yourself as far as like what you're doing? Because I mean, are you going to be doing this forever?
Honestly, I think I'm like super passionate about this, and it's not even really like about the money. Obviously, like I love making good money, but if real estate just paid, if I was only making like $100,000 a year, I'd still be doing real estate,
Really?
So, for sure. Because I just haven't found anything else besides basketball that I've loved as much as this. I wanted to be an NBA player my entire life, You
must be really good at basketball.
If I was really good, I'd be in the NBA.
No, that's true.
So no, I mean, I played varsity like 3 years, but I mean, nothing like wow,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I wish I could say I was super good. Yeah. But I'd still dunk on you though, like we talked about earlier.
On a 10-foot rim, I want to see that. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. Now, before I let you go, if somebody wants to get started, right? They want to reach on out to you. What is the best way to get a hold of you?
Hit me up on Instagram. I'm pretty active on there. It's at Ray, R-A-Y-R, Rodriguez, R-O-D-R-I-G-U-E-Z with an underscore at the end. Just send me a DM. I respond to those pretty frequently, I want to say. If you're an agent in Vegas, please send me all your deals. I want to be your #1 cash buyer here in town, or send them to Chuck, well, either one of us is cool. And yeah, that's all I really got, man.
Well, I do appreciate you coming to the show, like I said earlier. And hopefully we do some sort of deals together, man. I really do.
Yeah, man. I know we will really soon here.
I know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the LV Home Experts podcast. Until next week, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard